Good morning, HMO community. Welcome to my weekly podcast. This week I'm going to talk about a few tips for effective HMO sourcing, as people often ask me how we go about looking for HMOs and what strategies we're employing and what strategies are working for us. Now, the one that works for us best of all is the good old-fashioned estate agent. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is just give you some tips in order to get the best out of estate agents and how to get them working for you effectively. So the first thing we do when we're looking for properties in any area is we will go into the estate agent's offices, introduce ourselves, give them a bit of background, and we will also explain to them what we're looking for and start that relationship building up. So they will then, they may have some opportunities there and then, more likely will go away, and then they'll start contacting us with properties that they feel are suitable. Now, the important thing with estate agents is when they're sending things across to you is always give feedback. Even if they send something across that's completely off the mark, doesn't even tick any of the boxes that you mentioned to them, go back, give them reasons and explain, because a good agent will take that on board, excuse me, and they will go away, and then the next time they come back to you, they'll come up with properties that are more relevant. So always give that feedback to agents. Help educate them. The more educated they are, the better place they are to service you going forward. The other thing with estate agents is relationships and also consistency. So for us, we will talk to them pretty much on a weekly basis because we want to build up those relationships. But also we want to be in front of them regularly, because it may be that they've just taken on a property that they could have valued the week before, or maybe they valued it a few months before, and the vendor could have just come back to them and said, hey, we want you to try and sell this property. So what you're wanting your estate agent to do for you is you want them to tell you about those properties, ideally before they go on any of the big boards, such as Rightmove, Zoopla, Find a Property, because if they tell you about them, you can go and do a viewing, maybe get an offer accepted, and get ahead of everyone else because nobody else would have seen it. And that can only come about if you have a good relationship with the agents and you're in regular communication with them. If you're not doing those two things, then you're not likely to get the benefit of doing that. The other thing I want to talk about with estate agents is search alerts. So 95% of the properties, if they haven't been bought before, will end up on things like Rightmove, Zoopla, and Find a Property. So always set up alerts. One of the first things you should do, particularly with Rightmove, is set up an alert. So basically, you'll go into it, you'll put in criteria. It might be 4-bedroom properties under a certain price range. And when you do that, every property that comes into that criteria will come straight into your inbox. So if you're checking it regularly and a property is suitable, you can get back to the agent and book a viewing, just making sure that you've got the opportunity of seeing that property. Now, setting up these searches seems fairly straightforward, and it is, but it can be a little bit of trial and error. If you have a very broad search criteria, you're going to get sent too many messages and there are going to be too many properties to go through on your phone or your laptop, and it's just too time consuming. On the other hand, if your property criteria is your search criteria is too tight, then you might be missing out on opportunities. So as you get to know an area, you can tweak your search criteria, maybe drop the price range in certain areas within the area, increase it within others. You may learn that certain 3-bedroom properties in certain areas are right because they've got space to the side to extend or space to the rear extend, and those sort of things. So as you get to know the area, you can tighten up your search criteria, and you'll get to a point where you're not being inundated, but at the same time, pretty much anything that comes in that meets your criteria, you're going to have visibility of. So trial and error, it takes a little bit of time to get it right. So that covers estate agents in terms of the estate agents and also the boards that the estate agents use. So we've been principally talking about residential properties that we can convert to HMOs. But what about existing HMOs? So in any area, there'll be operational HMOs that maybe aren't doing so well. Maybe the owner inherited it, or he's just got a number of properties and he's not particularly interested in it. It's just sitting there and he's not getting the best out of it. So you want to be in contact with these guys as well. Now, the advantage of buying a ready-made HMO is that it's already there. You don't need to do major building work. It should, one would hope, comply with council regulations, fire regulations, and those sort of things. So you want to be talking to owners of HMOs in given areas as well. Now, you may know or you may not know, but if you don't know, I'm going to mention it to you, that every HMO in an area is registered with the council. So the council has a list of the property, the owner and the owner's address. They have to hold that information, and also they have to release it. It's publicly available. And the best thing of all, it's free. So using Guildford as an example, we contacted the council, they sent us a list, and what we do in Guildford is every 3 months, we write a letter to every HMO owner in the area, and we just say, we're looking for HMOs, are you interested in selling? If so, get in touch. Now, it's one of these things where you can write 500 letters, you will get very few responses each time you do it, but you only need 1 or 2. You just need you don't need more than 1 response or 2 responses. And if it's a serious response, then it gives you the opportunity to acquire a ready-made HMO, and you might walk into that property and you might see straight away that the reason the owner wants to sell it is maybe he's not letting the rooms, maybe the decor is not very nice, maybe there's patterned carpets and pink vanity units in the bathroom and those sort of things, and you might be able to quickly ascertain that really with minimum investment you can make it into a really good property at low cost. So it's really, really worth looking for those ready-made HMOs as well, particularly when there's an opportunity to add value to them and to give them a little bit of a facelift, a cosmetic facelift, without investing too much. Now, the other thing we do, which is less obvious, is we use the land registry. So the reason we do this is as you get to know an area, you might find certain streets within an area. You might find that every property in that street could be converted to an HMO. So I'm going to talk about Guildford because there's a street in Guildford whereby every property on that street can work as an HMO because they're all 4-bedroom properties. They're all, they've got space to the side, space to the rear, so you can easily convert them to 5, 6, maybe even 7-bedroom properties. So the owners of those properties, unlike for houses of multiple occupation, the owners of those properties, that information is not readily available in the public domain. So you could leaflet them, which works, and as a minimum, you should be doing that. But what we find works far better is to approach the land registry. It costs £3 per property, and the land registry will release the owner's details. So on the street, there's 300 addresses. So we have on the street there's 100 addresses. So we bought the detail. So we bought from the land registry the owner's details for each of those properties. So it cost us £300, 100 houses, £3 each, £300. We only had to do that once, and now we've set it up in our database, and each 3 months we automatically send a letter to each of those properties. And again, just like writing to the owners of HMOs, you will kind of get very little return, but you don't need much of a return. In a year, 4 or 5 times, someone write back to you from, one of the people that owns those properties might write back to you having received your letter, and he or she might say, look, actually, it's really opportunity you've written to me now. We are thinking about moving. We're relocating to a different area, and you can then go around and have a chat, and it gives you the opportunity to buy a really decent property before it's gone out to the agents. And before you compete with other buyers for that property. So we definitely suggest that you utilise that strategy. It works really, really well. So those are my 4 tips. There are other things people also do, like auction houses. People may use property sources. We've done those things too, but the 4 things that I've just spoken about work best for us. Now, I'm often asked, what's the magic? What's the secret to property sourcing? There is no magic trick, but there is a key. And the key is to do all of those things that I've just discussed, or if there's another strategy that works for you, to do all of those things consistently. You've got to do them regularly. There's no point in doing it for 3 months, getting nowhere and giving up. You've got to do it regularly in order to get the best out of it. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast and you found it useful. If you have, please do share it. If you've got any questions on anything I've discussed, please drop me a comment below. Happy to respond. And happy HMO sourcing. Goodbye and have a good week.